Hello YouTube. Today we're going to take a look at the Australian airbase Amberley. It is situated on the east coast of Australia, 50 kilometres southwest of Brisbane. To give an idea of scale, here is Australia compared to Europe. These are the topics we will cover, looking at the situation at Amberley in the year 2009. This is how the base looks out of the box, pretty sparse. And this is how it can look with add-on scenery and aircraft. We will be looking at a variety of add-ons. Here's the PC setup I'm using, and here are some of the add-ons that will be used. First, a look at it in FSX Steam. We're using a Chinook, and we're starting from the northern end of the base, and we'll head south over the main dispersal areas. So Amberley is currently home to 1 squadron and 6 squadron operating the Super Hornet, the FA-18. Number 33 squadron taking delivery of the Airbus KC-30A, and number 36 squadron operating the Boeing C-17 Globemaster. Amberley is also home to Army units making up the 9th 4th Force Support Battalion. Amberley is the largest operational base in the Air Force, employing over 5,000 uniformed and civilian personnel. There are a variety of other formations on the base, such as training colleges and maintenance areas. Amberley's largest squadron in terms of personnel is number 382 Expeditionary Combat Support Squadron, providing both garrison and deployed combat support. Amberley was one of only 2 airfields in Australia, the other being Darwin, that were listed as transoceanic abort landing sites for the American Space Shuttle. Amberley is currently undergoing a $6 million redevelopment program, and by 2020 the RAAF plans to have Amberley operating as its Superbase, with flights of FA-18 Super Hornets, F-35 Lightnings, KC-30As and C-17 Globemasters. The need for an RAAF base in Brisbane was identified in the 30s. About 900 acres of land near Ipswich was gazetted for defence purposes on 12 December 38. The base was initially planned to house a general purpose squadron with 300 officers and men. At the outbreak of World War II, the handful of brick buildings were still incomplete, and many extra buildings were constructed quickly using wood and fibro. The base opened in June 1940, with the first unit based there being number 24 Squadron. From May 1942, the base changed roles from flying operations to mainly assembly and repair of aircraft. The base became a major United States Army Air Force base during 1942 and 1943. After the war, it became the base of the RAAF's heavy bombers operated by number 1, number 2 and number 6 Squadron. See, there's quite a lot of detail in the scenery, and we'll climb a bit higher to get a better perspective. The Amberley scenery was built by Lawrence Nichols, John Tennant and Mark Griggs, and is available as freeware from flightsim.com. Moving on to the Lockheed Martin prepared 3D. And we'll be using the Batavia C-17 Globemaster. C-17 is operated by 36th Squadron at Amberley. First C-17 entered service in December 2006. The 8th and last C-17 was delivered in November 2015. The aircraft are generally crewed by 2 pilots and a loadmaster, the latter being responsible for loading, carriage and unloading of cargo and passengers. C-17 can carry 70 tons of equipment and is large enough to accommodate helicopters, tanks and other military vehicles. It can also carry over 130 passengers and is designed for aerial dispatch, paratroops or cargo. C-17 has a range of some 10,000 kilometers. Sixth Squadron are now operating the F-18 Super Hornet, but in 2009 they were using the General Dynamics F-111.
So here's the cockpit of the F-111. Obviously the navigator sits in the right hand seat with the pilot in the left, and then we go flying.
The F-111 is a masterpiece of jet bomber design. First flown in the 1960s, it still holds records for high-speed, low-level bombing. By sweeping its wings back in flight, the F-111 hits 3,000 kilometers an hour. It can carry 14 tons of bombs, more than half its own weight, to targets more than 2,000 kilometers away. Onboard radar scans the terrain, allowing high-speed attack from 50 meters above the ground, beneath enemy radar. The F-111 can dump and ignite fuel with the afterburners. The spectacular display can light up a city. For many aircrew, flying the F-111 is a career highlight.
Back in P3D, and we'll now take a short trip in an F-111 from Amberley to Archerfield and on then to Brisbane International Airport. Here we are using the Batavia F-111 model. From 1970, 6th Squadron operated F-4E Phantoms, leased from the United States Air Force, which were in turn replaced by General Dynamics F-111s in 1973. Number 6 Squadron took on responsibility for F-111 conversion training, and late in 1979 also received the first of 4 reconnaissance conversions of the type, redesignated RAAF 111 Charlie. From 1982 until 1987, Number 6 Squadron survey flight also operated leased Learjet aircraft and deployed to locations including Biak, Butterworth, Vanuatu and Fiji. In 1995, a new chapter in Australian F-111 operations commenced with the arrival into service of 15 F-111 Golfs. These ex-USAF Strategic Air Command aircraft were purchased to extend the life of the type in the RAAF service. and served exclusively with Number 6 Squadron. In 1996, the reconnaissance fleet transferred to Number 1 Squadron, leaving Number 6 Squadron dedicated to strike operations. We are coming up to our first waypoint at Westlake. So we get the 111 to turn south on autopilot. And now we're heading to Archerfield. You can just see it on the nose there. Coincidentally, we're flying right over my house. Over Archerfield, and then heading back north towards Brisbane International. Which you can just see on the nose now. From October 2008, Number 6 Squadron became the sole operator of F-111s, with Number 1 Squadron preparing for the introduction of the FA-18 Super Hornet. Finally, in December 2010, the F-111 fleet was retired, and Number 6 Squadron is today re-equipping with the FA-18F, known in Australian service as the Rhino. And down safely at Brisbane. So we clear the runway at the domestic terminal end. Pause and look back. Just see the Gateway Bridge there on the horizon.
But these extreme war machines can be fickle, and sometimes things go wrong in the air. March 2006. An F-111 loses a wheel on takeoff.
Left-hand side, all we had was a stub.
With no landing gear, surviving this flight will need much more than good luck. When the F-111 crew did pre-flight checks, they had no idea they were about to confront a life-threatening emergency.
We started the jet up as per normal, checked in with the other members of the formation, and then proceeded to taxi out to prepare for takeoff. We powered up, full afterburner, and rolled down the runway and got airborne, all as per normal, and then we get a very distinct call from air traffic control that our wheel has fallen off, which was quite surreal in the circumstances.
It was actually very fortunate that people did see that wheel fall off. If not, we would have returned to the airfield and tried to land without any idea that we had no wheel on the left-hand side.
Ejecting from the plane is ruled out. It's always the last resort. The decision to go for a belly landing without wheels.
We then proceeded to have a couple of goes without the hook down, so just low flying right on top of the runway there, trying to get as low as we can to get a feel for it. We needed to get down around the sort of 10 or 11, preferably maybe 7 or 6 feet. Finally, we decided that we're down to a position now where we needed to have a go with the hook down.
The F-111 has a retractable hook under its tail, which grabs a brake line on the runway if a high-speed takeoff is aborted. Maybe the hook will slow down the incoming jet.
We didn't get low enough on that first one and set up again for another go. We actually felt the cable dragging in the dirt. We could actually feel it make contact. We'd skidded to a halt. We knew we had to get away from the jet because obviously there's a risk of fire. There's plenty of metal in contact with the runway. We had about 3,000 litres of fuel, which is pretty explosive, sitting on board. In fact, just sort of behind us here, and some big fuel tanks. So we didn't want to be around with the potential of that catching on fire.
Absolutely stoked and rapt to have pretty much walked away from the situation with not a scratch. So yeah, very, very, very happy.
And this is what happened to the F-111s. Very sad. So, conclusions. And the credits. Hope you enjoyed the flights. Thanks for watching.